Hey, let's go. Welcome back to our show as we continue the march to the 2025 Major League Baseball season. This week, AL, NL Eastern divisions. But before we get to all that fun, we begin by asking you the question, where else would you rather be than right here? Boom! Right now. You are looking live.
Yeah, I know.
At our split studios. This is Fantasy Baseball Now, episode 26 for our show, part of the Ball9.com podcast network.
I have said many times, we are openly posted for a producer for this show, and we have demonstrated again why we need one. This week, we will preview the AL East and the NL East. We have a special guest, our resident Met fan, author, and athletic director, Rocco Constantino, will join us to talk about most specifically the Mets, but he'll give great insight into both divisions with special graphics from often show contributor, and now it might become Fantasy Baseball Now featuring Uncle Ted, as he gives us his AL East bust and his AL and NL East bust and his AL and NL East boom picks for fantasy baseball. And with that, Sean, how are you this evening?
I'm warm. We hit 50 2 days in a row.
I know.
Because I'll tell you what, I'm not afraid to admit, this winter I became, I'll keep it clean, a giant wuss when it came to the cold. Man, I didn't handle it well. It's got to end. It's got to end.
Enough's enough. This global warming thing, let's get it moving.
Yeah, right? Jesus.
Let's crank it up. And you got far more snow than we did.
Find a value in something, anything. I want warmth.
We have 1 day of snow predicted in the next 21 days, potential. And our average snowfall in Philadelphia is 17.5 inches. We have 8.1, which is less than Pensacola, Florida, Louisville, Kentucky, all of Carolina. I got to tell you something. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, we had wind. The wind was the worst part of the winter. You know, I can live with it being 22 out. I don't really care. But, you know, you had 40 to 65 mile an hour winds on there. And it's usually on a day that I cut my hair, and it just
both of them
goes right through. Right through.
Yeah, but then just think about it. You're streamlined to cut through the wind. You just got,
This is true. This is true.
It's like a luge helmet.
Let's bring in the man.
Let's bring in our resident Met fan, who this week, Rocco brought tremendous value to my life this past week, as I uncovered that there's a potential cult on the main line in Philadelphia, as his squads were down here playing Harcum College. And as I dug into the roster from Harcum College, I am now digging further and further in to see if James Jones has reappeared and is living on campus there, and they have some cult-like activity going on. And I did check the results, Rocco, and not great. Not great for either squad, huh?
No, Colts kind of struggled there in our last regular season game. We're good. We're very good. We're the 2 seed. We had a very good season, couple good seasons in a row. We've been nationally ranked during the season. Harcum beat us by 50 on the men's side. So that'll tell you how good Harcum is. They're a powerhouse for sure.
Well, you did better on the women's side because their previous game, the women won like 111-17. So if the spread is 50, you're just trying to hit the spread, and that's a victory.
That's the truth. They got some players, and they're from all over the world, like you said. Not just
no. I don't know whether I'm trying to figure it out. I've been by there. It's not a large university, to say the very least. It's a junior college.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty
I'm
small.
surprised I didn't get relegated to that with that sparkling grade point average I brought out of high school. Thank God for auto emissions and admissions in the JUCO world here in New York State.
Mr. Blutarski. Yes.
Pretty much.
Well, neither of us did anything at our time at that fine institution of academic excellence, the SUNY Plattsburgh. Neither of us did anything to try to boost our GPA by any stretch of the imagination. However,
and even worse, we did nothing to contribute to the outside community or the student body as a whole.
No, but we did have 2 full seasons of Stratomatic baseball, 2 4-team, 162 game schedule, Stratomatic baseball seasons, and the stress of Stratomatic baseball was far more than any midterm or final than any of us took it the entire time.
I just didn't bother with them. Rocco, before we get to real important things, I do have a diploma. As I graduated, Dean Wormer looked at me and he goes, "Congratulations, you deserved it." And I kind of just laughed. You guys got me out of here on the pity clause.
He shook my hand and said, "Never come back.
Get out
and stay out.
Just keep walking. Don't even go back to your seat. Just keep walking. Find your family and beat it before we take that back."
And I think I said to him, that Rondell White's got a freaking pretty good arm for the center field.
That's what you learned in college.
That's exactly what I learned in college.
Hey, you guys want to get started? I'm dealing with trade talk here in our league.
With trade talk. So before we start, Rocco, what are you working on now?
I got my ball 9 stuff going. Counting down at the top 400 moments in Major League history. We're getting to the top 100. We've been doing this 5 moments a week on and off for like 3 years. So we could almost see the finish line with that. But it's been fun to revisit all the great moments in baseball history.
Yeah, my vote today was Mickey Mantle's Triple Crown. By the way.
I voted Tyrus Cobb's 3,000th hit.
That was an interesting. That was, it's pretty crazy. He was, as fast as he got to 3,000. There's one of those nobody's breaking that record kind of thing. My vote went to the first All-Star game because I went and thought back about, my dad always telling me how he grew up. His only chance to see guys, out-of-market guys, was in the All-Star game. And how big the All-Star game was throughout the 50s and 60s when my dad was watching. So that ended up being my vote there.
Even the 70s and the early 80s, when they were playing it, it was a rush home to see the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
It was the longest day of the summer.
Pre-cable, it was definitely a must-see game.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and the players took it that way too. I still remember I interviewed Fred Lynn and asked him his career highlight. It wasn't any of the postseason stuff. It was his grand slam in the All-Star game.
When he ruined Antley Hammaker's career forever.
Right, seriously.
Yeah. That night, I hated Fred Lynn, but I loved him that night because it was the first time the AL ever won an All-Star game during my fandom, which started 11 years prior.
Yeah, it was a big deal to them, to finally get off the schneid like that.
That's awesome. Interesting because there was a lot of chatter around Four Nations, which was phenomenal, and the NBA All-Star game, which kind of overlapped each other. And like the money's irrelevant to the players now. And the money was very relevant to the players in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Like that $15,000 winner's share for the All-Star game in the 70s was a significant amount of money for those guys. Because there wasn't even $100,000 players at that time. That could have been half of some of those guys' salaries for the year. So like when you take the financial incentive out of it, you get what you get, right? It's not, the money means nothing. They make every excuse as to why they can't play hard. And then NHL rolls out Four Nations and you're like, the rest of these All-Star games suck.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Like my brother was at the Four Nations game. Well, not the final, but he was at one of the pool play games or days. They went to 2 games, him and his son. It was awesome.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So let's jump into the AL East. We'll do our AL East previews. And we got a little tiny bit of graphic here. So these are in no particular, or maybe they're in my order. Maybe that was subliminal. I didn't put them in any particular order.
Well, age before beauty, so you can certainly lead off.
Mike. So let's start with Tampa. The Nomads, who are finally going to have rainouts, and they're finally going to have rainouts in their regular season. And I still can't for the life of me figure out. I never want to count them out. This is probably their least watchable team, with the exception of Junior Caminero, as already. We'll get there. Don't worry about that. This, I don't know how they can. They'll find a way to win, and it'll piss everybody off, and it'll make everybody crazy. But I can't for the life of me figure out how they're going to win more than 75 games. Like, I really can't. Like, I just can't see it. I mean, if McClanahan comes back and he's healthy, they'll end up trading him. They're already talking about trading Fairbanks out of their bullpen. Their offense is, right? They're not that great. So, like, I don't know what you guys think, but I just don't see Tampa. I don't see Tampa as a factor in this division even a little bit this year.
Yeah, go ahead, Rocco. If you got a thought, go for it.
Yeah, I'm the same kind of way. I'm interested, really, what McClanahan is. I think the biggest story is how's the ballpark going to play, and is that going to be a big factor? Because maybe it does help guys like Yandy Diaz, Caminero. You're reaching, from a fantasy perspective. Fairbanks, I think, is a pretty good closer, and you could take a shot that he might go to a contender and do well there. And then McClanahan, could he bounce back? And aside from that, I don't, there's nobody. I kind of agree the same way on that.
Yeah, I same here. I mean, they did nothing in the off season. They did nothing, and them playing in the Yankees minor league facility, nothing to do with them. Through no fault of their own, they don't have a team tailored for that. They leave that pitching friendly park, and they're in a brutal division. That's the one thing about that division. They're a last place team. Finally, I've been waiting for them to fall off the cliff for at least 5 years. But like the Orioles were quiet this offseason, but they have more talent than Tampa, and Tampa doesn't have it. I mean, I think it's a last place team year for them, and let them go play at Steinbrenner Field for a little bit, and it is what it is.
Well, I think you also made an understated point. You build a team for your ballpark, and when you're playing on turf and you're playing in a dome, and now you're outdoors in the heat and humidity, because it is hotter and humid as hell in the Tampa area during the summer, and you're on grass, you're not on turf anymore. How you play is a different game. Like, those balls don't get to the gap. Those balls, sit in the grass. They don't skid to the wall to give you extra base hits where you can use your team speed. And I think it's gonna mess them up. So we can talk about Tampa and their stadium issues. That's a whole show for me, because Major League Baseball is a bunch of idiots. But there is a rumor that another venture capital group's positioning to buy the Rays and keep them in Tampa with the help of Major League Baseball, which is awesome. So we go to Toronto, and the story in Toronto is Vladdy Jr. That's the story. I don't know if Santander's a really good signing for them. A really good signing for them. Gives them another power bat. Bo Bichette needs to break out. I am very down on Bo Bichette right now until he shows me otherwise. Their pitching should be good, but it should have been good last year. I mean, Gausman was shaky all year. Maybe they win 85 games. Maybe they win 80 games. Maybe they win 75 games. They're not better than Baltimore, Boston, or the Yankees. So to me, they're a fourth place team. Rocco, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just feel like they're stale. How a group of guys, they get together, they're playing together for a number of years. It's all these same core guys. They are good, they're solid, very good, but they never got over the hump. And now it's, we're still here rooting for the same guys. I mean, I think Vlad is determined. Obviously, he's got the free agency coming up. He should put together a pretty good year. Andre Jimenez, maybe an interesting guy. Not any kind of difference maker fantasy wise, but a good solid player, a guy I always liked from the Mets days. But Gausman at the top of the rotation, that's, I just, again, like you said, they're not, I don't see them in there in the class of the Yankees, Red Sox, or Orioles.
Yeah, for me, I agree. I think they'll be better than they were last year because I think Bo Bichette will be better than he was last year. Guerrero is motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Love the Santander pick. I actually feel bad for the Blue Jays because they're the team that Scott Boras directs John Heyman to say that they're in the running for all these free agents and try and drive up the price. They're not. No one's going to Toronto. They're going to LA. Okay. I like the Hoffman signing probably as much because he's from the town I live in. But I like him there. Again, I love the Santana. Getting Scherzer, love Max, great career, Hall of Fame, but I think he's done. They'll be better, but yeah, like you just said, Rocco, they're in a division with really, really ultra competitive teams, and they're going to get lost in the shuffle. I think they'll get over 500 this year, but it's just too long of a road considering where they play, which is the challenge for these teams. They got to get better at doing what they're doing as a front office. You got it.
Well, they got to commit to something. Like they have to make a commitment to something because you can't put what was perceived to be a low ball offer in front of Vladdy, but then you sign Santander. Like, it's just like, what do you like? You're either going to make the moves to be consistently good, or you're going to develop players and they're going to go someplace else and they're going to be great someplace else.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of caught in no man's land with just the way they're running the franchise. So you just said, what is your cause? What is your purpose?
And they're not, solid players at every position. They're not any kind of pushover by any means. And it's to me a bunch of above average guys out there trying to compete against some of the best teams in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. So now our friends in Baltimore who literally did nothing in the offseason.
Zero.
Like, they literally did nothing. They did, except for losing Santander, who they can stomach that loss because they're so deep. They're so prospect deep with position players. But losing Corbin Burns and doing, like, that's a huge loss. Like, you really got to be ultra confident that Grayson Rodriguez is a top of the rotation guy, and this is the year he becomes that. To not do something. Nick Pivetta even would have been a good ad for the Orioles. So, like, they have this glut of players, like, who plays where does Westberg play? What happens with Jackson Holiday? How do they get Kjerstad in the lineup? Who's playing first base? Is it O'Hearn or is it Mountcastle? Like, they've got the top catching prospect in the game on his way. Where does he play? Like, they've got this glut of prospects that they could literally get. Like, if they wanted Dylan Cease, they could have him today because they have the players to make those moves and get him. Like, they traded for Corbin Burns, and they traded mid-tier prospects in their world that were really, really good prospects in everybody else's world. Like, they weren't even top 15 prospects in their prospect ranking. They would have been top 5 for pretty much everybody else in the game. So it's not like they don't have to break the bank of their young players. But it's, to me, if I was an Oriole fan, and I've said this before and I will continue to say it, I would be extremely disappointed after hearing a new owner come in and saying we're going to not be the same as the way the Angelos family was. And they've not done one thing to dispel that they're not acting like the Angelos family. I would be very disappointed that, we were close enough last year. We could have made a couple of moves to get over the top, and basically they got passed by the Red Sox.
They did. I think Grayson Rodriguez is a staff leader. He doesn't, but not yet. Okay, you're putting a lot of stock in guys that haven't done it yet. And I know he's been hurt, and all those offensive kids got a lot of potential. But who's the guy that's been doing it all these years? It was Santander. I get why you move on, but you're putting a lot of stock in these young kids that have shown flashes, they've shown potential, but they haven't proved it. But losing Corbin Burns and replacing him with Charlie Morton, Charlie Morton's okay. All right, he's okay. But he's not going to go win you a division.
Though,
yeah, if you're relying on him, that's a problem. If he's your fifth starter, okay, you take the ball. What's that?
Yeah, did we lose you, Rocco?
You guys froze up on me, but
okay.
You're there, and Sean is frozen.
I know the Orioles. The Orioles won my fan free agency contest last year, and I don't even know where the hat is.
Are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep. We got you.
Oh, there you go.
We got you, buddy.
Right. Yeah. No, like I was saying, it's. I forgot what I was saying. But I guess my point. I guess what I was kind of thinking along those lines was, you had all these guys that were big prospects coming up, the Mountcastles, Holidays, Grayson Rodriguez. And then even, some of the other guys that came up through other organizations, maybe like Tyler O'Neill, guys like that were supposed to be these big time players. And it's just a lot of questions now. It's how many of them are going to make that jump. Right. Mountcastle, it's been a few years now. Is Jackson Holiday, what's going to become of him, if he reaches his potential? So it's like you said, a lot of questions there. Good young people. I think they're the younger kind of version of Toronto. But I said more. That's why we were talking about Morton when everything cut off. He's their 3 starter. That's on a pennant winner, he's the back of the rotation guy, 5 starter at this point.
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say about the O's, I think this year, I know I dogged them a little bit in our rankings. I think Adley Rutschman will take steps forward this year. He'll be better. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He's a great leader for that team. I think, Rocco, I've said before with Rutschman, to me, he's a better asset to this major league team than he is a fantasy team.
Yeah.
But I think his impact on the Orioles this year is going to be profound. He's going to take that step. And he'll lead the way. They're 86 wins, 87. But those arms, it's the last time I've seen an organization this talented and this close to doing something commit this kind of malpractice has been the Angels during the entire Mike Trout era. Mm-hmm. They just didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it with them. So now, much to my displeasure and the pleasure of the big man in Massachusetts, we'll talk about I hate to say this, and they do have question marks, but the Red Sox are a good team, man.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense is loaded. Like, their biggest problem on offense is getting Raf Devers to decide that he sucks agree how bad he is at third base. Like, he was the worst ranked defensive third baseman in Major League Baseball last year.
Well, he's only led the league in errors 7 years in a row. Let's give the guy give him a hall pass. I'm joking. He sucks.
You got to be good at something. But I mean, but he can hit. Bregman is a good signing for them. That's a good signing. I think Crochet's overdrafted in every single fantasy draft. I think his average draft position is way too high because I need to see it. I need to see 150 innings out of him. I mean, but he could be healthy Chris Sale. He could be oft injured Jacob deGrom. He's got so much talent. Like, he pitched today. Scherzer pitched today for Toronto, by the way. But like, he's got so much talent. But pitching in Chicago for the White Sox when there's 7 people there, and pitching in Boston where there's expectations are totally different, right? Pitching in this division versus pitching in the AL Central, totally different. And he's got to be healthy. But then beyond that, the rest of the rotation's is a little shaky. They're going to score 1 billion runs, and they're going to run like crazy. And they've got more prospects coming too. They actually have position challenges because they've got kids that are ready to be in the majors and they got no place to play them.
Yeah.
Like, if Bregman moves to second, that screws everything. I mean, that really screws up development for 3 players. If Trevor Story's healthy, that puts Marcelo Meyer in the minors again for another year, right? And you can't justify paying what you're paying Trevor Story and then put him on the bench. You can't do it. You can't move any of those guys to the outfield because their outfield depth is phenomenal. Where Yoshida fits right now, who knows, right? Like, who knows? If they move Devers to first base, what's up? I mean, where does Cassis go? So I mean, they have a glut of offensive talent, and it's young. I don't trust their bullpen, though. Liam Hendricks could be the best story of the year if he comes back and he's healthy. I mean, you come back from major surgery and cancer, and then all of a sudden you're a closer again. That's a hell of a story. But what's the alternative? Aroldis Chapman? Have fun. Have fun with that. I'd live through that. I mean, you don't want that. And that was a problem for them last year. Their bullpen was terrible last year. Cost them a ton of games. But I still think they're a second-place team, and they're a playoff team. There's no doubt about it. They're a 90 to 95 win team. And it would they're going to have to really screw it up. And the manager won't screw it up. Like, they're going to it won't be because of Cora if they screw it up. It'll be because something broke down and they could never fix it, and it's probably the pitching staff.
No, go Rock. I was going to ask you, what do you think? The Cora Devers thing to me is going to be fascinating because David Ortiz came out the other day and saying, how could they do this to Devers? He's the leader of the team. I'm like, well, if he's the leader of the team, he should acknowledge that Bregman is 8,000 times better than him in the field and do what's best for the team. He's gotten paid. He's got a $300 million contract. Move over.
I agree. And you know what it reminds me of, being a mid to late 80s baseball fan, was when the Blue Jays wanted to move George Bell to DH. And he took his cleats off. They said, it was a standoff. They put him in a spring training lineup in the game at DH. He took his cleats off and went and walked down the left field line and sat there. And then on opening day, it was the same thing, right in the lineup. All right, you're the DH. All right, do it again. Do it when it counts. And that was the year he went out and hit 3 home runs on opening day. So it all kind of worked itself out. I think Cora is the key. I don't know about the specific relationship with Cora and Devers, but Cora seems to have a real good relationship with all those guys. I think they eventually get it to where it's going to be. But I'm high on the Red Sox. I believe they're a top, 6-7 team in all of baseball. We mentioned Jim Jones earlier. I'm drinking the Garrett Crochet Kool-Aid like a lot of people. He's got to prove it, and you never know with the lefties in Fenway, but I really like him. And Walker Buehler too. That's a guy I wanted for the Mets.
That's the guy.
I mean, and he's at the back of the rotation, or maybe what do they have him as, the 3 or 4 starter possibly, or
what if he's 2022 Walker Buehler? Wow.
Yeah.
I think
it cost him nothing.
Right.
I thought the Buehler signing was great. Crochet, I wasn't sure about, but as spring training is rolling along, I think I'm with you, Rocco. I think I'm going to drink that Kool-Aid on Crochet.
And I think Bregman's going to have a big year. I think he'll be revitalized over in Boston with a great lineup around him too.
Yeah, look, I'm going to shock you. I'm not even going to hold on to this for a little while. Get your pencil out, Mike. I'm not even saying this to piss you off, Mike. I think Boston's going to win the East. And that pains me to say it because I hate the Red Sox. But I think they've done enough. And I just have some concerns with the Yankees that I think Boston's going to – I think Crochet will outpitch Cole this year. And that will be enough. If they manage his innings right, he gets to 160 innings, Crochet, he's going to put up some killer numbers.
Oh, yeah.
My only question on them is their defense. How's that? I don't, Story this opening day shortstop, or are they, still sorting that out?
I think right now he is. He's healthy.
Yeah.
For the first time in a while. So, I mean, it's a dilemma with them because you can't pay somebody that much money and have him sit. He has to be in your lineup, and Bregman to short, though that's not an inconceivable move for him. I'd rather have Story at short than Bregman at short if it's me.
Yeah, I don't love either one of them in that spot, but their offense will make up for it, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean Duran's a superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, Cora said they're going to put their best team on the field. The best team is Bregman at third base. There's no way around it.
Well, that's the thing with Devers. Like, you either want to win or you don't. You know, like, I mean, like this happens with players all the time. Like, what's the most important thing to you? First of all, you already got paid, as you said earlier. If you want to win, then play first base or DH, one or the other. But let the manager put the best lineup out there and win. And when you show that level of selfishness, it says that it's more about me than about winning. And for me, that doesn't work for me.
Yep.
I mean, it might work for the folks in Boston, but it doesn't work for me. I want a little drama up there. It's good. You need some distractions. Because the ultimate distraction is the team we'll talk about next. I'm going to be as optimistic as possible about this. If they're not going to fucking third baseman, or if DJ LeMahieu doesn't drink out of the fountain of youth, it's not going to be good. Like, I think the Bellinger signing or trade was phenomenal. He's going to, if he stays healthy, he's going to be phenomenal in Yankee Stadium. I think Jazz embraces being in New York. And I mean, if Yankee Twitter will not lose their minds when he has, a 1 for 21, which he's prone to do from time to time. I mean, it's the Jason Dominguez thing is the Jason Dominguez thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He's getting used to a new position. That was 1,000 tweets the other X or whatever it is post the other day when he lost the
work
ball
on those fly balls.
Well, he wouldn't have done well in the old Yankee Stadium. He would have lost everything in the sun. But he's another guy from a potential standpoint that could, if he realizes what everybody leads you to believe that he is, then their offense is going to be completely fine, and the moves they made will make up for losing Soto. I mean, you don't make up for the Soto swagger and what he does to get a team fired up, but Jazz does that a little bit, right? But Jazz has to produce at a consistent level to make that effective. Getting Devin Williams was massive for them.
Yes.
I mean, massive for them. I mean, a reliable closer. I mean, Luke Weaver did a really good job down the stretch, but he never closed before. He's really a starter. And knowing Boone will pitch him like he's done to Dylan Betances and Jonathan Loaizaga and Chad Green. He'll use him till his friggin' arm falls off, and it actually will. It'll actually fall off sometime in August, and he'll be done for a year because he'll pitch him every single day. But it adds a little length to the bullpen. I think they'll be fine. I like the Goldie signing. I think Goldie will bounce back. I think Goldschmidt will bounce back and have a better year than last year. And he has the mental makeup that it's not going to bother him being in New York. If he's getting booed, I don't think it's going to bother him. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. I like the Goldschmidts. I actually really like what the Yankees did this offseason. Goldschmidt's the kind of guy the Yankees, the mid Yankees dynasties would have signed. He would have been awesome on the 96 through 2000 teams, leader like that. But yeah, I really, as a Mets fan, I hate to say it, but I really like the Yankees a lot. I think their rotation's great, has the potential to be great. I like Cole. He goes out, answers the bell every time. Fried, Rodon, Lewis Heel. That's four pretty good starters when you're putting a good offense out there.
Yeah.
And I like the bullpen. Devin Williams, totally agree there. And Weaver, he's a good setup man. Tim Hill was a great signing. They got speed, they got power. I like Austin Wells at catcher. I, and maybe Spencer Jones gets a shot, and with Stanton injured, it's
Yeah.
they'll make, it'll be up to whether they make the moves that they need at the deadline, I think, to really make the push for that. There should be a guaranteed playoff team, even with the Stanton injury. And then it's going to be what they do during the season to improve the ball club. That's the way I see it with them.
The key to this team, and I don't have any numbers to quantify it. I just don't like the Fried signing with the Yankees, and I don't know why. It just doesn't feel right. It feels like Sonny Gray. Sorry, it's true.
I knew you were going to say that. Stop saying that. You're pissing me off.
Okay, Ed Whitson.
There we go.
There's just something about it that just doesn't feel right, and that's just a hunch. If you get Max Fried from Atlanta, okay, I think you have something now. But why do I think Gleyber Torres is going to flourish in Detroit?
Well, because I don't think there's no pressure on him to do anything in Detroit.
I mean, he got his facial hair before
he could just play baseball. I'm a little disappointed. I did reach out
that ridiculous thing.
When they relaxed the facial hair policy, I did reach out with an option for them to move Jazz back to third and for me to fulfill a dream from 1977 and be the second baseman for the Yankees because I don't want to shave to play. And I guess I probably shouldn't have said a limited range, slow of foot, can't hit a curveball second baseman. I probably shouldn't have said that, but Uncle Ted taking a shot at me. I mean, but I mean that probably shouldn't have been what I sent to Cashman. But like, did not even get a response. Like, come on.
I'm waiting for former Rays president Dave Kaval to return 82 phone calls of mine. So those people, they're just not good at picking up the phone.
Yeah, that's true. He's got bigger things to worry about.
Yeah, like finding a job because he's
like whether Carlos Rodon's not the next Sonny Gray / Ed Whitson versus Max Fried.
Well, you got your
say the least. I think the ace, quote unquote, ace in the hole for them is Clark Schmidt.
Love Clark Schmidt.
I mean, to have Clark Schmidt as your fourth or fifth starter, that's a pretty good, deep, solid rotation. If everybody stays healthy, right? So that there's all that, but I don't know why they keep talking about trading them to fix whatever they got to fix, but sometimes you have to wonder if everybody wants your player, maybe you should think about why you want him. You should want him to. You know what I mean? Like if he's the name that comes up in every single trade, let's get Arias. Well, they're going to want Clark Schmidt. Maybe we get Michael King back. Well, they're going to want Clark Schmidt. If that's a name that comes up every single time and not the reigning American League Rookie of the Year, maybe you better take another look at what the value of that player is, as opposed to we're just going to move off him because he might be arbitration eligible in 2 years and we can't go over $307 million or whatever that number is that Hal has decided.
D-Rod's bringing the goods with my Gleyber Torres outlook, and you're right. He did get benched for not hustling. I just think some guys are just better off outside of New York, and he may be one of them. I don't know, but I got to put you guys on the spot. Rocco, you're a Met fan.
Mm-hmm.
Who wins this division from you before we get to Mike? Because I want to hear him say Boston more than you could possibly.
You're not going
to. I think it's the Yankees. I like their pitching a lot better. Yeah. I think they're a more well-rounded team. Like you said, they're out there. They got guys that can steal bases. They got power. Question marks, I think are at the corners there. Goldie, we think will be good, but who knows? Guys get old really fast. LeMahieu, I think they need a better option at third base. But these are bottom of the row, they're big name guys, but they're not going to be key guys. It's going to rely on Judge having another Judge year and staying healthy. Dominguez, reaching his potential. Volpe taking a step forward. Jazz being Jazz and doing that. And I just, like I said, I really like the pitching. I think I'm really high on them with that.
They can survive a down year, an injury year for a year from Stanton. The interesting thing about him is no one's saying anything, and they call it personal. You hope he's okay, but it feels like that could be a problem, doesn't it, Mike?
Yeah, I don't like that. It's a little concerning to say the least, but from a baseball standpoint, if you have to rely on Giancarlo at this point in his career, if you're relying on Giancarlo Stanton to help you win a division, you're in trouble already. Like you're already in trouble. And to Rocco's point, I mean, maybe Spencer Jones doesn't strike out 38% of the time, and he gets a little bit of exposure in the majors so they can really see what major league pitching does to him. But another 6'7" behemoth of a guy that hits them far. Holy smokes. I mean, he hit a bomb the other day. It was crushed. Sounded like a home run when he hit it. I mean, it was pounded. So he's got great power. It's just, where does he play? Like he's playing center field. Like, what are you going to have? The tallest outfield in the history? I mean, you're going to Stanton gets healthy, you put him in left, and you got, the 1968 Boston Celtics front line as your outfield. I mean, what do you like? So, I think it's going to be. I feel like this is like a 70s, 90s Red Sox Yankees summer coming up, right? Where it's going to be neck and neck, and they're both going to be battling, and they'll both be tinkering and trying to make moves to get through it. And the games against each other will be great. And I mean, Baltimore could sneak in between them because nobody's paying attention and there's no expectation because all the attention's on the Yankees and the Red Sox right now. But Baltimore could also take a step back this year, which would be tragic for that franchise.
It's inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. So, yeah, we'll see. I think the Yankees I think you got two playoff teams for sure. The Orioles should be in the playoffs.
They should be.
But I don't know.
They should be. I mean, there's definitely it's very easy to say there's three playoff teams from this division. There's no reason not to say that. Right? You assume one from the Central or maybe two, and one from the West or maybe two. But three from the East is not unlikely. I mean, a wild card is going to be a brawl this year.
I think you get one from the West. I think Texas is gonna rebound after a down year. Houston will take a step back. Seattle,
they got a hit. Seattle hits, then everybody's going to be terrified.
Mm-hmm. You're right. You want to move NL East now?
Certainly.
Rocco, you want to take the lead on the NL East, being the Met fan, and plus in honor of your Expos cap that you're donning this evening.
Let's do it. Then let's start with the Washington Expos there.
There you go.
The bottom right, starting like we did with the AL East. Team wise, the Marlins are brutal before we even talk about them, but the Nationals are lucky that the Marlins are in that division, I think. Couple good young guys. James Wood is good. CJ Abrams, that's two pretty exciting players. I'm still wondering if Mackenzie Gore will ever freaking realize that potential. He was supposed to be the next Kershaw. He's still just 25, and he has some big strikeout games, but he's got to get that control. He's got to get some depth and get some control. But that's about it. I mean, Luis Garcia is a nice player too. And maybe some of these guys end up on, I'm not Wood or Abrams, but maybe some of the other guys end up on contenders on trade stuff like that. But not a ton of interest in the Nationals, aside from those couple of young guys that are pretty good there.
Yeah, I like the Nats. I like that young talent. They're a team that's coming. They're not here yet, and the top 3 teams on that graphic are going to make it brutally difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they're a team on the come, but it's going to be at least a year away. But you got some interesting talent there to keep track of for sure.
You know who's another guy I like? And sorry if you were going to jump in there, Mike, but the DJ Hertz, that lefty, he's another guy that if he ever gets, harnesses his stuff, he's pretty legit, man. He's still a young guy. Great strikeout stuff. He doesn't throw hard. He's like the old crafty. He's actually very similar, I think, to Mackenzie Gore. Maybe different styles a little bit. Hertz is a little more herky jerky, but he's not he's a sleeper draft guy that I kind of had been trying to identify. But I'm just trying to reach for some interest here. They do have some good young talent, just not a full team yet, and in the gauntlet of the NL East, it's going to be tough for them.
Well, and Dylan Cruz is coming. Dylan Cruz will get
that's true too.
Plenty of time. But if you put DJ Hurst next to the darling sleeper is Spencer Arrighetti, they're very similar. I mean, Arrighetti strikes out more guys, but when they were on, they were phenomenal, but they were both inconsistent last year. And that's just part of being young and being a pitcher in Major League Baseball. I mean, you get figured out after a period of time. He's a really talented guy. I'm with you on Gore. At some point, he's either going to be good or he's going to be gone. It's like one of those things. You can't keep trotting him out there. I mean, I think the biggest move they made this year is not re-signing Patrick Corbin.
Man, already.
I mean, they do have some hitters. I mean, they did sign Josh Bell. I mean, I mean, Garcia's great. We'll get to Uncle Ted's breakout player when we finish the divisions.
Uncle Ted just posted Kyle Finnegan re-signed, and he was pretty good for them last year.
Well, that helps then, right? Yep. So, but they're still what's their ceiling? 80 wins? They flirt with 500. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
If things go right for them.
There's 2 teams in the National League that are really, really bad. And there's 5 or 6 that are really, really good. And then there's a whole pile in the middle. And in the middle, you're going to be scratching and clawing and in fist fight games all the time, right? You assume you're going to beat up on the Marlins. You assume you're going to beat up on the Rockies, though maybe not. But everybody else is it's going to be work. It's going to be work to win a series all the way around there. And then, but I think they're going in the right direction. It looks like the ownership situation is settled for the moment there. Where the team's not for sale anymore, so I think with that cloud not being over their head and all these young guys are starting to produce, and what they got in the Soto trade is starting to come forward, and the guys that they picked up in other trades are starting to come to the majors, and their payroll's manageable. So if they were close to a wild card, though I don't see how they would be. They certainly could add. They could add players if they needed to. But I mean, if they're going to finish 4th, because the next team we're going to talk about, and I'll let you start with them, Rocco. Over under on the Marlins, I just saw. I don't know if it was D-Rod or Uncle Ted is 63.5.
That's under.
And I think that would be a monumental. That would be to me, that's the easiest bet of the year.
Yeah, well, they did pick up Cal Quantrill.
That was the first guy they signed, right?
Yeah, Luzardo can go play for a real team and see if he can hit his potential. Yeah, they're a disaster. And
they're $60 million in payroll below getting any competitive balance money. 60 million. 60 million.
The best way to do it is what Oakland has done. You give it to your own players because nobody wants to come and play for you. Unless you're Luis Severino and you'll take a 2-year payday. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, they're brutal. I agree on that under. I mean, though I can't see them getting more than 50 wins. If Alcantara is any bit of healthy, he's getting traded. I mean, there's a reason all these Kim Eng and Mattingly, everybody fled the organization.
Yeah.
You got Peter Bendix at the helm there. I think he spent the offseason at the Blue Oyster Bar. I mean, they didn't do one thing to make themselves better. And even, they're a lot like the Nationals. The Nationals got some good young guys. We compare the rosters. The Marlins rosters are it's more those 25 to 27-year-olds.
Right.
Got not the 21 to 23-year-olds that you see on the Nationals and some of those things. I mean, Xavier Edwards, I do like him.
Me too.
He's a good player. It really flies under the radar there. Exciting player. And somebody they'll probably keep because he's cheap, but it'd be cool to see him on a decent team. But outside of him, I mean, where are they getting any kind of offense from?
That was my next question. From a fantasy standpoint, is there anybody on their offense that you would want to roster?
Besides Edwards?
Besides Edwards?
No.
Right, Jake Berger's gone, right? You can't get any homers, right? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, I can't. There's nobody out there.
Yeah.
We already spent too much time talking about them.
If their starting rotation was healthy, which has been a huge if for them. I mean, they're loaded with pitching, but it's an uphill world when you got to go out and you got one guy that has the potential to throw if he's healthy to go out and throw a shutout every time he throws, and that's Alcantara. And the rest of those guys to have that pressure where you can't give up anything or you're not every start you have to keep your team in the game, as opposed to tonight might be the night we score 12. They just, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why Major League Baseball allows it. I don't know why they're getting an all-star game. I don't know why they're getting a winter cup hockey game. Like, I don't understand what Miami has over baseball or any sport, with the exception, anything, frankly, besides tax-free revenue, besides a tax-free paycheck. And that doesn't even attract players there. And it might attract players there if they would actually pay them, but they have no inkling to do that.
No.
None. And then it's like a chicken and the egg thing. Like you put a good product on the field, and then maybe fans will show up. Fans show up, you should put a good product on the field. I mean, I don't know. Outdoor baseball in Miami in July is not something that's on my list of shit to go watch. It's just not.
So I think it's some good baseball teams now.
All right.
Mike, your Phillies.
Now the fist fight, right? Now it's the fist fight. So all three of these teams could easily make the playoffs. All three of these teams, you can easily make an argument for why they'll win the division. All three of these teams are going to score 1 billion runs. All three of them are going to be fun to watch. They all got a little question here and a little question there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some have bigger questions, and the what if is a huge thing, especially Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
But the Phillies, like, first of all, like I've said this before, the Jesus Luzardo trade to me is a phenomenal move for them. Because he's like, you talk about Crochet giving you 160 innings, and he's not Garrett Crochet by any stretch of the imagination. But if he can give them 160 innings, that rotation is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
If Jordan Romano is healthy at the back of the bullpen, they have an all-star closer. They haven't had one. The last time they had a reliable closer, he gave up a home run to Joe Carter.
That's your definition of reliable?
It's been a while.
What's in that glass?
It's been a minute. The bullpen's been a disaster for a long time. They're going to score runs like nobody's business. That ballpark they're built for that ballpark. They've done a really good job of putting a team together that fits that ballpark. I mean, Bryce Harper is obviously the catalyst to everything that happens there, and him being healthy or him not. I think Bryson Stott bounces back this year and has a better year than he did last year. I'm a little concerned about Real Muto as he's caught so many games and been relied on to play the way he plays that, like, from a fantasy perspective, his value is way down, but even like he's going to need some more days off.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about playing Schwarber more in the outfield because they want to give him more days off behind the plate and let Stubbs catch so that he can keep his bat in the lineup and stay fresh, keep his legs fresh. But you put Schwarber in the outfield, and that's like Greg Luzinski and Gary Maddox all over again, and they don't have Gary Maddox playing center field.
They put him out there last year for a game. And he hurt his wrist and missed a couple weeks.
Yeah, because he tried to make a catch.
Yeah, and more importantly, it hindered Team Pugsley's baseball team.
I think their sleeper move because in that stadium he could be really productive. Max Kepler could be a sleeper move for them.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about Kepler.
He's just got to be like he's not been healthy for a long time. He hasn't played a full season in forever, but he gets on these tears, and he gets on a tear, and he can put that team on his back and take. He's perfect. He's a perfect complement to Nick Castellanos because he can go 0 for 30 while Castellanos is going 15 for 30. And then he can go 15 for 30 when Castellanos is going 0 for 30. And between them, they got one good player. Two very frustrating players, but both that will produce. And Castellanos has turned himself into a pretty good outfielder. It took a long time, but he's turned himself into a pretty good player. If you told me that you picked the Phillies to win the division, it's hard to argue, right? If you told me that they were going to finish third, I can't argue with that either.
What about you, Rocco?
But I do think that they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should. I mean, my thing with the Phillies is they're built for the ballpark. They're built for October. That's winners and leaders up and down that lineup.
Yeah.
Plus, you're going into some series. You got to go Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, and Luzardo. That's all of them. Mets navigated that, but that's still a tough road to hoe for anybody in the postseason. My only thing with the Phillies is a lot of guys north of 30. Schwarber's over 30, Castellanos, Kepler, Trey Turner, Harper, Real Muto, all over 30 years old, Wheeler, Nola. So, if they get hit by the injury bug, I could see that. It could be one of those years where guys get time off, guys get injured, aches and pains, 15-day DL, all that kind of stuff. And then it all rounds into form in September. They get healthy again and make their run. That's the only difference I see with the Phillies. Over the long haul, 162 game marathon might be tough on the old men that are in their early 30s. But come October, if that team is healthy and producing, then they're a scary team to deal with in the postseason.
I like Philly to win the division. I think Wheeler to me is the third best pitcher in baseball.
He's awesome.
Yeah. He really is, and he's been healthy for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's reliable. He's going to take the ball. He's going to give you innings. I think the key for this team is Jordan Romano. If he can clean up that back end, I think they'll win the division. I think, but that said, I think you got 3 playoff teams in this division.
Yeah. I hate that the Mets got rid of Wheeler. I always I mean, it burns my ass. That's not hindsight. He reminds me of Roy Halladay. A little bit of a poor man's Roy Halladay type of thing. Not as dominant, not as the type of career, but that's the type of pitcher he is to me.
And he shows up in big. Yeah. He shows up in big games.
Yeah,
big games. He shows up. Like he's not. You're not getting 2 1/3. What happened to Zach Wheeler today?
Right.
Playoff Zach Wheeler is terrifying, man. He shows up in big games.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
Hey, it's interesting. I don't know if our Uncle Ted and D-Rod were doing a great job. I got a note here saying they can't post some comments, so I don't know if you're trying to comment and you can't, but I don't know. It's a glitch, FYI. But at the Braves, I like the Braves this year. I think Acuna had the big injury. Olsen had a down year. Oh, and with that, there's a comment. Awesome. Austin Riley was hurt. I think they just were in a collective funk offensively that I think they're going to rebound from. I like the Braves this year.
Well, I think they have the two biggest what ifs in the division. What if Acuna comes back as Acuna, and what if Strider comes back as Strider? And if those two things happen, they're the Braves that we've come to begin to hate for the last 10 years, right? They're like, here we go again. Like, you can't bet against the Braves. You can't count them out. They're always in it. They find a way to beat you every single night. But they've got they're a really, really good team. They're a really good team. But the Acuna thing, Albie's coming back from injury. Is he the player that he once was? Can Riley rebound? It's hard for me to pick them to win the division. Though. If I had to pick, I would probably pick them because I'd bet on the what ifs there. Because their rotation's still pretty damn good and their bullpen's really good.
You know what? Right? The Strider injury opened the door for guys like Schwellenbach, who came out of nowhere and had a great year. I think they're going to be third, but a very competitive third.
It's 390 win teams. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It should be. And I Schwellenbach, he pitched some games against the Mets, and that's where I've seen him the most. I mean, where he was double-digit strikeout dominant, no-hitter stuff type of dominance.
Yeah.
He's got, I mean, if he develops that way and continues on that path, that's a big thing. To me, with the Braves, it's just what you said, Mike, a lot of what ifs. It's all those questions that you just asked and what's going to happen with them. And I'll throw in, is Chris Sale going to stay healthy too?
Yeah.
Is he going to have that type of year that he had last year? He's about 35 now or so he's trying to get up there. What's Acuna going to look like coming off the bad knee injury? I of all the guys that are what if or who's going to bounce back, this and that, I like Austin Riley the most. I think he's going to rebound this year, have a really nice year. And Michael Harris, we didn't even, touch on him. He's a spark plug for the whole thing.
I'm very high on Michael Harris.
Another guy.
Yeah.
Jurickson Profar.
Yeah, that's right. Profar.
Jurickson Profar being added to that offense too. He had a great run in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good fit for that team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he's a really good fit for that team.
Yeah, and that would knock Kelenic to being more of a lefty platoon guy or guy off the bench, which seems like to me a better role for him.
Yeah. Sadly.
Hey, Rocco, as a Met fan, which of the two, the Braves or the Phillies, concerns you the most?
I think the Phillies. Those guys. I look at that team and they're winners. I mean, just up and down the lineup. That not that the Braves aren't, and not that they have don't have those type of guys. I just think the Phillies are more gamer type of guys. Braves, I think, have the higher upside, but I also think they have a lot more questions than the Phillies do.
Yeah,
the Braves are an enigma.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like a poor man's Dodgers in some regards, that their system is so loaded with talent that just when you think that somebody's fallen off the edge, they call somebody up that nobody's been paying attention to, like Schwellenbach last year.
Yeah.
And like out of nowhere, they got another top of the rotation pitcher that they've been developing. So how they scout and how they draft is They talk about football being a copycat league. I don't know why teams don't look at what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, what are they looking at when they're drafting these kids? Because they're not drafting somebody that just came off an NCAA national championship. They're seeing a kid in high school and being like, you know what? We like everything about this kid. We like his stuff, and we're just going to develop him for 4 years. And when he comes up, he's going to be a Braves pitcher.
They've known pitching since Leo Mazzone, and not just Maddox, Glavin, Avery, and Smoltz either. It's continued, and that's where you talk about Sale. My argument with Sale is maybe the Braves just know how to handle pitchers like that better than everybody else does. He won the
I wouldn't argue against that. Yeah.
Well, he's young for his age because he didn't really pitch for 2 years in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for 2.5 years, he basically didn't pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's got wear and tear on his. I mean, he's got like 2.5 years of now wear and tear on his arm. They just got to keep him off a bike. Like, just don't ride. You can't ride a bike anymore.
Maybe he goes the Frank Tanana route and starts to, tone down the velocity and become more of an off-speed kind of guy.
Learn how to pitch.
But with that delivery, that would be even that. I mean, he's got the delivery to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Rocco, what about the Mets? You can have the floor. World Series or bust, or is it just not good enough? And did any other pitchers get hurt today?
Oh, geez. Well, that's what it is. It's the pitching. The lineup, I think, is very solid. It's pitching health. I mean, Senga, I don't trust him. And Manaya and Montas are already hurt. So, like, you're going into the season with your two most reliable pitchers as David Peterson and Clay Holmes, and you're going to try and compete against the Braves and Phillies and those kind of guys. Stearns, watching him operate last year, I think that the way he approaches pitching is in-season adjustments. I mean, he's real fast to sign a guy and give him a few chances and then DFA him if he doesn't like what he sees, and kind of mix and match that way until he finds the right fit. I thought he did a really good job with that. I think they fortified their bullpen. I like their bullpen a lot more this year going in than I did last year. I like the Minter signing. I like that they got Stanek back for a full season. Jose Buto's a good arm. And I do trust that Stearns and the front office will find the guys when they need to. It's my questions with the Mets are, is Vientos for real? I mean, I see people just penciling him into the 3 and 4 hole and projections of 35 homers, and which would be awesome, but he ain't Miguel Cabrera off a 4-month run. I hope he is, but I'm not ready to make that claim yet. I mean, we've seen that before with young guys. So that's a little worrisome for me. Nimmo, he started having some injuries creep up on him last year. He's already injured again this year. I think he starts to, transfer into a more of a 7, 8, 9 batter instead of a 1-2 batter in this lineup, 1, 2, 3, that kind of stuff. Winker, I just not fully convinced of the full team yet. Obviously, Soto's ridiculous. Lindor, I don't know if he's going to put up another MVP year. I mean, we saw what he did last year. How do you duplicate that at age 31? Right. And he's just, he ain't a big guy. He's out there 160 games a year the past few years. Luckily, knock on wood, he stayed healthy, and there's, been no ill effects of all that playing time and the way he plays, diving, sliding, hustling. Love him, but at some point, he just has that ticket to get old really fast type of thing for me. Hopefully I'm wrong. I do love that they signed Alonso. I think that lengthens the lineup. Yes, sky's the limit. I could see them third place in the division or World Series champs. I like Diaz to bounce back. He was good last year. He has his meltdowns, but I expect a pre-injury type of thing from him. And my one big bounce back guy, and from a fantasy perspective, Francisco Alvarez.
I was just going to ask you about.
He was so disappointed. I was so high. I was so mad when somebody stole him out of wanted to try and draft him last year in our league, and was it you that grabbed him? I'm like, motherfucker.
Sure was.
That was the one freaking guy I wanted. And I picked him up at the end and got some use out of him. But I mean, he's still real young.
He's real young. He's really talented.
And from what everybody says, he's such a hard worker.
Yeah.
He's just, a good, to me.
Yeah, he's a good catcher too, so he's not going to not be in the lineup. I mean, like he's a plus defender with a plus arm, and if he hits to what he could hit, he's going to be as good as there is.
Yeah, he could lead all catchers in home runs in Major League Baseball easily. Yeah.
So where do you think Alonso's head is? Because like that's a big question for me. Like he's a guy that I would, from a fantasy standpoint, I'm staying way away from him. Because he's kind of in a prove it or lose it year, even because he's got the option in this contract, or he's going to be, if he doesn't have a great year, he has been declining a little bit. If he doesn't have a great year, like they could pick up his option because it's relatively inexpensive, and then he could be right back where he was last year. And, like without the home run against Milwaukee, like last year wasn't a good year for him.
No, it wasn't. It's been a couple years where, I think, and he's only 30. He's not old, but I think, the days of him hitting 50 homers, I think, are behind him. But if he goes out and is, 35 to 45 homers, hitting 250, 260, I think he'll get a big boost in the lineup from Soto. He may be the biggest beneficiary of having Soto in that lineup. And you mentioned his head. I saw an interview with him today where, they were going back and looking and talking about the home run against Milwaukee and just his mindset and where he is in general. I think he's got to be so happy all the bullshit of the offseason is behind him. He'll be as consistent. I'll be out there 160 games, 30, 35 homers, 100 runs, or 100 RBIs,
What about trying to
fault a guy for? You can't fault a guy for wanting to be someplace. No. He wanted to be a Met.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like you can't fault a guy for having that kind of like loyalty / passion about a team and wanting to be there and not make, like, you can't fault that. It's hard to criticize that. Maybe he could have got more money in Toronto. Maybe he could have got more money someplace else. He wanted to play there.
Mm-hmm.
Rocco, what about the notion of possibly going back and getting Quintana with these injuries? He's not great, but he's serviceable, and you know him. He pitched pretty good for them last year.
Yeah, especially down the stretch. I really like him. I would love if they got him back.
He's out there. He's unsigned.
He's out there. He's unsigned. He's not going to be expensive. He's up there in age, but shoot, and he was a good influence on the younger pitchers too. I know, he and Minaya were really close. You'd have to think he'd be a positive for Frankie Montas too. I would love to have him back. I thought I really liked him. I thought, again, we're poor man's Johan Santana. That's what I saw, from there.
Well, you think Stearns is just sitting and waiting and seeing what?
Yeah, they seem.
We're going to wait a couple of weeks. We're going to get into the middle of March, and then we're going to see if San Diego's still really serious about trading Cease or King. And
I do think
maybe we move some of these younger guys and we'll showcase them in spring training so other teams get to see them, and we're going to make the move for Cease because we're going to need something at the top of the rotation to not only win this division, but if they even had any thoughts of winning a World Series, they got to get better in the rotation. They have to.
Yeah, 100%. I think so, and those are the two of the targets there. Obviously, Cease and King, and that's I'm hoping that where there's smoke, there's fire type of thing, because they've been linked to the Mets for a little bit in the offseason. Maybe the Padres want to see what Beatty looks like in the spring training and what Acuna looks like. I'm good with trading one of those guys for a top of the line pitcher like that.
Marcus Stroman.
I don't want to go there.
He said top of the line.
Yeah. I was the same rotation with Stroman as everybody. I thought his first year I really liked him. And then that dude wore out his welcome real fast. And
why do we
shit
go
on
to flea
everybody on the
markets
way
and
out.
yard sales? Because one man's trash is another man's treasure. Maybe he's.
What about? I'll put you guys on the spot. I like the Phillies, the Mets, and then the Braves, all to make the playoffs, but in that order. Rocco, what about you? Are the Mets going to win this division? We didn't even get into Soto much because I don't know what more can be said about him.
Right.
You know he can handle the city. You assume he can handle the pressure. It's a home run in his first at bat of spring.
Right. I'm going Mets. You know, they're part of my heart is in that pick too, but I do think that they get that rotation straightened out as the year goes on, and I think they're better than they were last year. I'll go Mets, Phillies, Braves on that. I just think the Braves have a lot more question marks than the Phillies. And the one thing we didn't mention too is that the managers of those three teams, Snicker and Rob Thompson, I think are two of the best. And Mendoza did a great job. I wasn't
really good job.
Too high on the hiring at the time, but I thought he did fantastic. And something Howie Rose always talks about is he's never seen such cohesion in the Mets front office in decades between Mendoza, Stearns, and Cohen. You're going back to the 60s for that to have happened.
Here's a question from D-Rod. Jordan Montgomery. Any smoke around him? I mean, he's persona non grata in Arizona.
Do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard him linked at all to the Mets, really.
He'd be a good Met.
I like Jordan Montgomery. I thought he was great in Texas.
Yeah, he's a good bounce back candidate for this year for sure. Last year was a disaster.
You got no place to pitch him.
Right.
It's hard to say a team doesn't need a guy. They don't really need him. Like they can use him. Arizona can use him. They don't need him.
Yeah.
Signing Burns took care of that.
Right. And then the owner, made his comments about Montgomery, and that ended that there.
Yeah, that took care of that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like for me, I can't the Braves are like the friggin' Chiefs. Like I'm not betting against the Braves until somebody else wins a division. Like I just like you can't. They're too loaded top to bottom. The Phillies probably have the least questions, but the Phillies aren't built to win a division. They're built to win a World Series.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to get in a tournament, and then now you got to play us and have fun. Have fun with that.
Okay. All right. You want to bring in Uncle Ted's boom and bust picks? Rocco, you gonna hang with us a little bit?
We pulled show's frequent contributor, and I said to him, give me two players from each division, American and National League East, that you aren't picking in fantasy, and then give me two that you're really high on. And obviously Uncle Ted is far better at graphics than this fucking ragtag Fisher Price show that we're on. And when he told me Judge and Alonso, and if you've noticed his comments multiple times, I'm like, is it like you wouldn't take him because of average draft position? You wouldn't take him because he's like, no, they're both right-hand hitters, and right-hand hitters suck in fantasy. That's basically what his take is. I don't think Judge is Judge, right? They're never going to put anybody in front of him again that gives him opportunities like Soto did. It's not like there's one Juan Soto. He's a one-on-one guy, and he makes pitchers nuts, and he sees a ton of pitches, and he finds his way on base, and he gets in pitchers' heads, and then the next guy you're facing is Judge. Well, there's like, if Bellinger hits in front of him, if Jazz hits in front, it doesn't matter. It's not the same guy hitting in front of him as was last year. So do I think he takes a step back? Yeah, But a step back for Judge is he's still in the top 10 for MVP, and he's, 45 to 50 homers and 115 to 125 RBIs. That's a step back. But maybe not 300 because he's not going to get the same quality of pitches unless they decide to run in front of him this year, which they didn't do last year. And they just create some chaos in front of him. I don't know. Alonso, I agree with his take on Alonso. Now, Rocco, what do you think the lineup looks like? Like, who does Lindor lead off? Soto hit second. Alonso hit third. Do they?
I think that's the way to
Nimmo
go.
And have Nimmo lead off, and then have Lindor hit 2, Soto hit 3, Alonso hit 4, Vientos hit 5, Alvarez hit 6. Like, what's the lineup look like?
Yeah,
it's going to be very top heavy.
Yeah, I think so for sure. He always was big on keeping the Alvarez down in the lineup, even down below some of the, even when he was going good, he doesn't boost him up. He kind of, I think, uses him for some length. I think it is going to be Lindor leading off. When he made that move last year, that keyed the whole run, I thought, and Lindor's comfortable that Lindor loves that. We call him, some guys, look at me, Lindor. A couple former Met or two I know has referred to him as that.
I do love him.
Yeah, no, I do too. So I think that's what it goes. I think they'll put, Mendoza values the veteran, so I think he'll put Alonso 3, and Vientos 4. Then probably Winker 5. He'll throw a lefty back there.
That's a lot of pressure on Vientos.
I agree. Yep.
All right. What about the boom picks?
So Ben Rice caught today for the Yankees. That's a pretty big move to have him catch. And he is a lefty bat in Yankee Stadium. And despite the fact that he was like 1 for a million from the middle of August on, he did get Major League at-bats last year, and he got Major League at-bats when it mattered. It wasn't like he was getting Major League at-bats in September on the White Sox. He got Major League at-bats through the World Series last year, so they trusted him to let him hit. He kind of came out of nowhere as a prospect for them. But in a semi-platoon where he can play some first base and catch, I get it. Until I see a defined role for Ben Rice, I'm not all that high on what he's going to bring to this team this year. Jose Tena could create a challenge for the Nationals because he's a potential 2020 guy, second baseman. And then what do you do with Garcia, or do you move Tena to third? Or if CJ Abrams' head is so far up his rear end at this point, and he can't act like an adult, and he's going to act like a little kid like he did last year, maybe they just finally be like, you know what, the hell with it. We're done with CJ Abrams. Who needs a shortstop? We're open for business, and we're already in the middle of a rebuild, retool, or whatever you want to call it. Languishing is where we are. Maybe, there's no room for him in the outfield. That's for sure. With young Wood and Cruz, there's no room for him to play in the outfield in Washington. So they signed Bell. They've got 2 first basemen / DHs. So they've got the only way he's gonna find a place to play is if either he plays third base or they move Garcia, or Abrams just washes out. But he's kind of an under radar guy to keep your eye on. Yeah. And in deeper leagues, you definitely want to, like where you've got corner infield, middle infield, he's a guy you might want to grab.
Okay.
Look at those graphics, man. That's pretty nice.
Nice. Yep.
We got El Jefe Vitale working on some new graphics for our show. We can only improve at this point.
We do?
Yeah. He says he's working on some mock-ups for us.
Okay.
Well,
by the time El Jefe gets to him, maybe I'll have as much hair as you. So we're
Hey,
El Jefe with his new show, Kitchen Cacciatore, which is pretty good, by the way.
The Ayatollah of Capicola. I mean,
There you go.
Can't beat it. You can't beat it. All right. Next week, Central Divisions.
Yeah, hopefully we get reached out to a Pirates fan and a White Sox fan because I want to see somebody's head explode, and a Pirates fan would be the most apt person for that to happen. That's I root for that level of I'll have some shit to say about the Pirates myself. I'll have to make a decision next week. It's gonna be decision time for me. Do I wear my Roberto Clemente number 21 jersey, or do I wear my new Cubs alternate Ernie Banks jersey?
Oh,
which just arrived courtesy of my good friends at Wrigleyville. That powder blue Cubs alternate is the hottest thing I've ever seen, man. That thing is
awesome.
Phenomenal. Such a great jersey. And Ernie Banks was my dad's favorite player, so it was the right time to once I saw that, I'm like, I got to get that. So
A+. Yep.
Yeah, that'll be fun. You want to give us your quick thoughts on the NL Central, Rocco, before we make fun of the Mets again, before we break?
I'm interested to see what Terry Francona does with the Reds.
Yeah,
if he could work his magic there. They've always been a borderline-ish playoff push through the first few months of the season, and then they fade. So, like to see what he could, do, keep straightening out Ellie, see how he helps his development. That was a huge thing for the Reds this year, I thought.
Yeah.
That's my most interesting thing there.
Last year, the two idiots that were hosting Pugsley's Pit, I think they both picked the Reds to win the division. If I'm not mistaken, I think they both did. But we fired those morons and we switched to fantasy baseball now. So.
There you go.
I probably did because I'm just stupid sometimes. So, all right. So we'll do Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
I think we're Tuesday next week, right?
All right.
We're back to Tuesday, same time, same bat channel. Thanks, Rocco.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks. Anytime, man. Happy to always talk baseball with you guys.
Yeah, it's always great to have you on. It's always well worth it for us, and hopefully everybody that tunes in feels the same way. And check Rocco out on Ball 9. He's got check out his last the post ending story.
Spitballing,
spitball. It was so good, man. It was such a good. It was one of all the many that you did. That was as good. That was as good as there was. And I think I commented to you, like, a lot of times guys would get on spitballing and there was some level of bitterness, some level of something, and a lot of me talk. And there was none of that. Like, just a wholesome conversation about a guy that really had a really good career and had no regrets about any part of it. And he had multiple opportunities to show some regret, but he didn't. He took the high road. And really, as I said to you, it's a pretty cool story when you can turn like one specific thing that could turn you like super bitter. And then instead you turn it into like how you've got a wife of 45 years. Like, that's pretty cool.
Right. And that was Dave Van Gorder. And when you mentioned that to me, I thought, even bigger picture. Here's a guy was a national champion at USC, second round draft pick to replace Johnny Bench in Cincinnati. Not only did that really not work out, but then he gets to within 1 day of getting medical pension for life, and the Orioles cut him, the backup catcher, for no reason. Just, we're not letting you get your medical pension. And that guy did not have 1 ounce of bitterness, and it just feels, and he could have used it. He had some health issues and passed away. But yeah, what an awesome guy. And going back and listening to the recording as I was writing the video, writing the article, knowing that he had passed away, and that's his last interview, there's a lot of gravity there for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But thanks. I appreciate the comments for sure.
That was great.
Thanks.
All right, next week. Thanks, Rocco.
Thanks, Rocco.
All right, next week, same time, different day.
No, we'll go Tuesday, right?
We'll go Tuesday, same time, same channel.
Yeah. Well, unless I get thrown a high school basketball game to go cover, but
we'll spend probably 20 seconds on the White Sox and an hour on the other 9 teams in the 2 divisions, and it'll be fun. It'll be a little Brandon Woodruff talk next week.
All right. We'll catch up to you next week.
Adios.
See you all. Thanks again, Uncle Ted D-Rod. Appreciate it. And Rocco. You're all.